Okay, I think everybody who was in the waiting room is now with us. My apologies for running about 5 minutes late. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Stone. I'm the UNESCO Chair in Cultural Property Protection and Peace at Newcastle University, but also the President of the Blue Shield. And just to go through a couple of points before we get to the programme itself. At the moment, we are failing to get hold of the Director General. So we will start in a moment with Lena, who is from the DGAM and will be talking about World Heritage Sites. But just to remind you of the programme, we will have 3 speakers and then a short break, and then 4 speakers and then a short break. And then in that second break, please put any time, but in that second break, we will be looking at all of the questions and trying to match the questions to people to respond. And then we will try, therefore, and get the best discussion time available on that process. I will, as those of you who were with me in December will know, I will give speakers a 2-minute warning when they are close to finishing, and so we can try and keep as best to time as possible, although we've already lost a bit of that. So without further ado, I turn over to Lena. Lena, thank you very much. Over to you. And please, everybody, there is simultaneous translation down at the bottom of your screen from Arabic to English and English to Arabic. So please find that if needed. I think that's everything I need to say. So Lena, over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lena Qtefan. I'm responsible for the Syrian World Heritage List as the Directorate General of Antiquities and Museums. Thank you for joining today's presentation on the current status of major Syrian cultural heritage sites, particularly those listed as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I appreciate your time and interest in this important topic. In this presentation, I will first provide a brief overview on the damage to these heritage sites, followed by a discussion on the challenges, faces, and the needs that must be addressed. Okay, let's start now. Architecture is often among the first things rebuilt after a war, and at times, it can even be a catalyst for conflict. In a world frequently plagued by strife, architecture can serve as a tool to influence and control people's action. The fabric of the Syrian society and its economy has been severely harmed during the 14-year war, while all the major cities of the country have suffered significant damage. The cultural heritage of Syria has been greatly hurt. Syrian World Heritage Sites, Palmyra, Aleppo, Crac du Chevalier, Busra, Damascus, Qalat Salah ad-Din, and the ancient villages on northern Syria, as well as other world-known cultural heritage sites such as Afamia, Ebla, Mari, Dora Oropos, etc., have been heavily damaged by combat, shelling and bombing, plagued looting and occupation. The urban fabric of the Syrian archaeological sites suffered heavily. The country and its people are facing the challenges of post-war reconstruction and finding the right path for sustainable development, and it had to organize a comprehensive emergency relief aid program alone. The scale of damage, the need of specialized advice, and the weakness of native resources mechanism caused by warfare usually make external support for recovery necessary. Syria is a home to 6 outstanding World Heritage Sites recognized by UNESCO for their cultural and heritage significance. Unfortunately, due to the war, the country, most of these sites have been damaged or destroyed. The cultural heritage of Syria goes, of course, well beyond these listed sites. And for example, there are over 10,000 listed archaeological sites The war damaged the hundreds of the sites, which takes multiple forms, as well as direct shelling, damage by clashes. Some sites are simply suffering choleratic damage. Other sites are hit by gunfire or blown out, the monuments or their infrastructure damaged as a result of being caught in the middle of the hostile. Moreover, ancient citadels and further damage constantly. The extent of population displaced by war in outlying area of the city, seeking modern accommodation, and not extant building turned into commercial warehouse or factories and dramatically increased the risk of fire and its containment. The increase in population in the ancient city of Damascus to 65,000 compared to 47,500 in 2011, and with majority 43,000 being women, had placed additional stress on limited infrastructure in the area. One of the most severely affected communities were those residing in the ancient city of Aleppo. Statistics show that in 2011, there were 28,600 families, totaling of 143,000 people living in the ancient city. During the war, most residents fled the city for safer areas. Upon the end of the fighting, 19,000 families returned to the city, bringing the current population to approximately 99,715 people, while there are being sustained efforts to relocate inhabitants back to their homes. More than 43,000 people who fled the ancient city have yet not returned, resulting in a 30% rate of displacement. Numerous monuments were severely damaged or destroyed due to the intensity of the conflict, the severity and the scale of the fight. The former part of Aleppo ancient city into ruins and has caused massive destruction and widespread suffering, with the violence extend to the subterranean tunnels. So damage at the site is widespread and significant. A systemic campaign has been conducted to erase Palmyra's monuments and obliterate its history, destroying the Temple of Bel and Baal Shamin with the Tetrabil, the monumental arch gate, several towers, tombs, and the Arabic citadel, and the facade of the theater. The site of Palmyra is still uninhabited. Only 2,000 families live there. The inhabitants moved to other cities during the war, and the city appears to have never fully recovered. The site is only used on damage assessment carried by the DGAM staff. The lack of relevant documentation and the architectural remains of the site are in danger of collapse and face serious deterioration and risk of cultural failure. Moving to Busra, there are about 34 historic monuments with a total area of 140 hectares. From this area, 6 hectares have been destroyed, 27 hectares are in good condition, and the remaining 107 hectares range from lightly damaged to almost destroyed. Houses, railroads, and cultural monuments and public buildings have suffered visible damage. Traditional houses located in the eastern part of the city were mostly affected. The most common impact of the war on the basalt stone masonry houses are featured in walls and collapsed roofs. Between 2011 and 2014, the Crac du Chevalier experienced significant violence, including direct attack with heavy artillery and explosive shell, leading to extensive damage to the World Heritage Site. The damage to this fortification and buildings varies from minor to severe. Fortunately, the Qalat Salah ad-Din was not the focus of heavy clashes, but it was a subject to sustain increasing damage due to neglect, uncontrolled growth of vegetation, and the earthquake of 6th of February in 2023. Forest fires that occurred in 2020 reached the buffer zone of the citadel and from the southern and eastern direction, affecting around 30 hectares of the buffer zone. While the 8 parks in Idlib and Aleppo countryside face serious also conservation issues, including increasing illegal excavation and construction and new construction, the occupation of archaeological area by displaced civilians has led to progressive destruction of monuments, though the reuse of archaeological materials in construction of these houses and a progressive active degradation of historic remains. However, one of the biggest problems generated by the war is the loss of knowledge through internal displacement and external migration, which had led to the loss of many skilled educators and craftsmen from were forced to find safe havens in other countries to restore their livelihoods, especially since the access of these traditional crafts to international markets and consumer was blocked due to the economic sanction imposed on Syria. The challenges and obstacles to the heritage sites facing the among World Heritage Sites in Syria conflict are multifaceted and complex. I will talk about some key issues. First, the assessment and documentation. Mapping of damage has been carried out on sites and properties where access possible. After distinguishing waste debris from remains of the heritage building, the position and condition of original fragment from collapsed structures was documented. Evaluating the extent of damage to historic sites and architecture is critical, but it is still difficult to ongoing security concern because of mines sometimes and inaccessibility to some areas at the north and east border of the country, such as the archaeological site at the Furat region and the northwest of Syria. Comprehensive documentation of sites before and after damage is necessary for restoration, but not all the previous data is accessible for comparison, as well as resources like computers, cameras, lack of electricity to operating devices, as well as personnel are limited. Evaluating the extent of damage to historical sites and architecture is critical, but it is still difficult due to ongoing security concerns. Comprehensive documentation, yes, I talk about this, sorry. The second challenge is restoration and preservation. There is no doubt that post-war situation call for physical reconstruction that should took place immediately in the ancient cities, such as Damascus, Aleppo, and Busra. But the current challenges facing post-war rehabilitation are numerous, including the returning of inhabitants, destruction of the city's infrastructure, a shortage of skilled heritage experts, and various levels of damage to all districts. The materials needed are limited for emergency intervention to cover building and shore up walls. Standards building materials to repair roofs also is shortage. Satisfying this need goes beyond the capacity of the Syrian authorities. The ongoing development and the implementation of local peace approach require collective efforts. There is a big lack of funding. So far, the international donors have been wary of breaching sanction on Syria. So many international organizations have been restricted in their ability to provide aid in this field. The sanction extend activities related to preservation and restoration of cultural heritage, but sanction-related obstacles remain. Skilled labor is limited, and lack of traditional material hinder restoration efforts. International efforts in Syria were seriously hampered by the lack of donors willing to invest in a region not being settled, and most of the destroyed sites remain unattended for years. The third challenge involved is the development of recovery master plan aimed at assisting inhabitants to come back. Cultural heritage preservation institutions are dedicated to helping displaced population restore, improving livelihoods, and safeguarding at risk heritage sites. Effective management for those is necessary for infrastructure and collaboration among national and international experts. The fifth challenge is the climate and environmental factors. With infrastructure damaged, environmental factors such as erosion, pollution could further threaten already valuable sites. Increasing climate-related risk influence the preservation of built heritage, require adapting restoration methods. The sixth challenge is pertain to technologies integration. Opportunities exist of using technology like 3D scanning to preserve heritage digitally, but implementation is limited by resources. The seventh challenge is the public awareness and education. Increasing public awareness of the importance of the cultural heritage conservation is critical, yet education initiative hindered by instability and limited resources. Now we are going to talk about what we need to continue to protect our heritage. To continue to protect our heritage, several specific needs must be addressed. This includes immediate actions, long-term strategies, and the mobilization of resources and support. The first need is comprehensive damage assessment. Site evaluation conducts systemic assessment of damaged at-risk heritage sites to understand the extent of damage and prioritize restoration efforts. Database creation by developing a comprehensive database documenting cultural heritage, their current condition, historical significance, and restoration needs. The second need is the restoration and conservation efforts like stabilization project, initiate urgent stabilization measures for structurally compromised sites to prevent further deterioration, funding for restoration, secure financial sources, and grant from international organizations, NGOs, and government dedicated to heritage conservation to support restoration effort. The third is capacity building and training. Skill development program provide training for all architects, conservators, and craftsmen in traditional building techniques and restoration practices enhance local expertise. Workshop and seminars and educational programs focusing on importance of the cultural heritage and effective preservation methods is necessary. The fourth is community involvement and engagement. Local foster community engagement in preservation efforts, ensuring local voices are heard and involved in decision-making process. Cultural awareness campaign will be very valuable for the cultural heritage through awareness campaign that highlight the importance of the heritage at the national and local identities. The fifth
Lena, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Lena, I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you finish in the next 2 minutes, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. The fifth is the international cooperation and support, partnership with global organizations, collaboration with UNESCO, ICOMOS, and other international bodies to access technical expertise, funding, and resources is necessary. The seventh is digital preservation and technology usage. Digital documentation utilizes modern technology like 3D scanning, GIS mapping, and virtual reality to document and create digital archive of these sites is necessary. Online resources by developing online platform for sharing information and facilitating collaboration among the experts. Protecting the Syrian rich cultural heritage demands coordinating efforts across various sectors, including government, local community, and international organizations. By addressing this specific need, we can help ensure that Syria's invaluable historical and cultural assets are preserved for future generations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Lena, thank you very much indeed, and my apologies for all the technical problems. Then we'll go as Isba suggests, and please, Mr. Mohammed Al-Mazri, could you take the floor, please?
Very much. Can I share?
Please, let's try.
Of course, everyone knows that Syria is rich in its history. This sacred region produced rich cultures throughout history. It's a treasure, and we need to preserve it. As I've mentioned, this treasure is worth preserving, and I won't convince you why, because we are all aware of the importance and the value of the cultural heritage in Syria. But I'd like to start by highlighting 3 points. The first one is that Syria is, in fact, a repository of several cultures throughout history. The second is that the cultural heritage is one of the most vulnerable and fragile aspects to preserve in a culture or in a country. The third point is that Syria, that now has been liberated, is indeed in need of support in order to preserve its cultural heritage. What we are witnessing now in Syria is a turning point, and we need to keep paying attention, and we need to keep prioritizing preserving cultural heritage. Because preserving this type of heritage is a preservation of the human aspect, and it's going to impact the future of Syria after this turning point that we've been witnessing. We need to ensure that we start documenting this in order to be able to preserve it for future generations and to provide them with a glimpse of their history. We need to work on utilizing technologies and available digital tools in order to ensure that the cultural heritage is preserved and made available for future research and for future generations as well. Also, we'd like to note that it is essential that these efforts to digitize the various aspects and various collections should not divert our attention from preserving the original and from paying attention to the original pieces. There are various challenges that we face when it comes to preserving the content that could be made available. We have a large number of journals and manuscripts that, if digitized, would enable researchers to delve into new areas of research and would enable them to go beyond what has been currently available to them, and that may include private collections as well. However, these efforts are expected to face two levels of challenges. The first is related to collecting the documents that are or that used to be under the control of different authorities, and to bring them together under centralized or under a unified entity. The various forms of violence and clashes between various authorities and factions on the ground definitely would impact the ability to document comprehensive catalog of what's available in Syria. And of course, this is a main point in general. There are other challenges, operational challenges, that are expected to be faced as we start the work to do that. And perhaps unseen challenges will also reveal themselves as we go beyond this. In order to achieve this comprehensive catalog requires, first of all, mapping all collections, official collections at the beginning in Syria, and to scan them, to identify their location, and to add all the details related to them in one database, and to provide an index of these collections, and to make it accessible for the public, and to provide the digital scan as well online. Then the work of the restoration work will start after that, and that would include also working on including and restoring the collections that were that are originally Syrians but were sent or smuggled into other countries. We need to ensure also that the documentation and restoration work will be conducted in the local areas, in the original areas of these artifacts or monuments. We need to ensure that the work ethics are adhered to. The digital archive could be central, but the monuments themselves or the artifacts themselves should not be moved into one location. It's important to preserve the variety and the spread of these. So the work, in order to preserve Syria's cultural heritage, should be done in line with country-specific guidelines that focuses on the objectives and the purpose of this work. Ethics are of high importance in this context, including while preparing the digital catalog. It is also essential to provide the digital archive as an open source, especially for researchers, and to ensure that these digitized documentations are user-friendly and that quality assurance is conducted throughout the process, starting with the design of how the digitization process will be conducted. So this project that we're proposing is going to cover a number of collections. Many of them are partially documented. I'm going to list them very quickly, and then I'm going to talk with a bit of details about Waqfiyya library in Aleppo. First of all, we have the collection in the center in Damascus, مركز الوثائق التاريخية. It has different sections, including photography, and we have the Zahiriya library in Damascus as well, where we have large collection of periodicals, journals, and manuscripts. It has been very well preserved given its location in Damascus, but it has not been digitized yet. In the Zahiriya library, there is a section allocated to non-tangible heritage. Also, it has not been digitized as well.
All of these documents were transferred to Al-Waqfiyya library. It was reopened in 2006. These documents were transferred to Al-Waqfiyya library, which was reopened in 2006. After that, we collected the remaining documents. Most of the documents or manuscripts were sent to Aleppo. We collected the remaining documents to rehabilitate them. We started a rehabilitation center, but after that, the war started. In 2013, the library was shelled during the clashes, and it was burned up. Only a depository or a warehouse was survived, in which we had kept some equipment. So we transferred these equipment and the remaining documents and other things to a safe house. The safe house was in rural Aleppo, and we had to transfer these things from a place to another, and now they are safe in this place, and we are waiting to send them back to Aleppo. After the liberation of Syria, we hope that the Waqfiyya Library Aleppo will reclaim its status with support from an institution here in Istanbul and other international organizations like Heritage for Peace, Blue Shield, and IFLA. We hope that the library will be reopened and will be a beacon for visitors, intellectuals, and experts. And we aim to establish a museum for manuscripts for Aleppo archives and other important things. In addition to Al Waqfiyya Library, there's the book house in Aleppo. There are other private libraries, the Central Library, Al Ma'mun Library. There are libraries in churches, the Maronite Library, the Catholic Library, Orthodox Library, etc. All of these libraries are important as they include manuscripts and periodicals and other magazines, rare ones that need to be taken care of. I made this hasty but revealing presentation. I have to say that we need a clear political decision. Some people may say that the current administration have other priorities and that books come later. And some people might say or think we can come to that later, after we have worked on more urgent issues. However, I believe that this heritage is not a secondary issue. It's not an unimportant thing at all. It should be a top priority. It's as important as people. The heritage of the people is part of people, so to speak. And we should take care of the heritage as much as we take care of people, of human beings. And it should work on heritage should go hand in hand with work on other areas in our new Syria. Heritage is part of the life of people. I will present some images of Al Waqfiyya Library. Images of the Waqfiyya Library before the war. Here you can see some astronomical equipment. This was a training course.
Mr. Al-Masri, sorry to interrupt, but can I ask you to finish in 2 minutes, please? Thank you.
Images of repairing manuscripts, as well as some paintings. This is the Grand Mosque in Aleppo. Here the member was dismantled before it was destroyed. One of the mosque's gates was dismantled as well and sent to a safe place. This is called Al-Halawiya School in Aleppo. And we built a wall outside the niche so that the niche is not harmed. These images are from the current location of the member of the Grand Mosque. All the manuscripts are kept safe here. They were sterilized and kept safe. Here you can see other manuscripts that had been repaired before the war. Here you can see some astronomical devices. This is the Makhtutat house in Istanbul. We established this in Istanbul after we were displaced from Aleppo. We implemented a lot of projects with regard to manuscripts. and codicology and other training courses. These images are from our center in Istanbul. We deliver different training courses on different levels. We also worked on the Arabic manuscript encyclopedia project. We conducted a conference in Algeria, Istanbul, Grenada, and Tunisia. The next conference will be in Tashkent. We aim to revive the Waqfiyya library in Aleppo, and we hope that the organizations taking part in this workshop will support this project. Here you can see images from different exhibitions in Spain, Tunisia, and other countries. Here they digitalized 5 libraries in Mauritania. And there are many other similar projects, but time cannot accommodate all other projects. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for a fascinating presentation. Thank you. If you could clear your screen, but if you could share your PowerPoint with us, that would be really helpful, if that's okay. Okay, I think we have the Director General with us. Mr. Zaidan, are you with us?
Hello.
Hello. Fantastic. Mr. Zaidan, do you have a PowerPoint to share?
Sì, posso parlare nella lingua italiana o arabic?
Entirely up to you. We can. There is simultaneous translation, both from English to Arabic and Arabic to English.
Va bene, تمام. Arabic,
Perfect.
English, تمام.
Hello, everyone. I would like to speak about the current situation of museums and archaeological sites in Syria, as well as the our strategy for the future. I'll try to be quick. DGAM works on setting the priorities and a strategy after the tough conflict in Syria. DGAM put in place a preliminary program which provides for rehabilitating museums across Syria and introducing a new antiquities law, as well as another law for archaeological missions and other teams. The program also covers rehabilitations of buildings and antiquities. It also covers surveying and scanning all the damaged sites and setting a plan to rehabilitate these antiquities and to reclaim or regain the stolen and smuggled antiquities. We also will be working in the future on creating or establishing museums in important sites such as Ebla, Ugarit, and Mari. The program we are working on will include other fields or areas such as digitalizing current manuscripts, it also covers the tourism and cultural industry in Syria. We will be working with UNESCO on removing some archaeological sites in the north of Syria, removing them from the sites under risk. DGAM will work together with its branches in Syrian governorates. We will also rehabilitate museums and present antiquities in these museums in a different modern way. As I said, we will survey all the damages in different archaeological areas. We have a 3-year plan for this. We will also work on rehabilitating the infrastructure, especially in Latakia and Tartus. Of course, this would require equipment, teams, and expertise. DGAM especially needs reconsidering the working teams in DGAM and its branches, and recruiting expert teams. There are many workers and employees in DGAM and its branches, but most of them are not experts or specialized. We also need devices such as cameras, monitoring devices, things like that. We also need to rehabilitate the archaeological sites in a way to attract tourists. There are many important sites that can be used for touristic purposes. This is an overview of our goals for now, and I welcome any questions if you have any.
Mr. Zaidan, thank you so much for a very speedy presentation. That was very useful and very helpful. We now have a scheduled 5-minute break, and we will come back with questions later on. I hope you are still able to stay with us for the rest of the afternoon. And so it is now 1:30, 13:30. We will reconvene with a presentation by Isba Sabrin in 5 minutes' time. So a moment for a comfort break or to put the kettle on, and we will reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it is now 13:35. So Isba, if you are ready, can you share your screen? If you have a screen to share. And just as a reminder, if people would like to put any questions into the chat, then we will sift through them and allocate them to the best person to answer them. I see we've already had 4 questions in from one person, but there will be others, I am sure. So please just put your questions in the chat, and then at the next short break, we will go through them. Isba, 15 minutes, over to you.
Thank you very much, Peter, and it's a pleasure to be in this webinar and also to show the interest of Blue Shield and many international organizations who are with us today and funders and Syrians in this webinar. So actually, my presentation, it will be some kind of reflections and some lesson learned and some policy advocacy as well, in order how what is the next and what we should work in this period in Syria. So preserving Syria's cultural heritage in a post-Assad era, challenges, strategies, and opportunities. As we saw in our first webinar, we have many challenges in Syria. And the main challenges, as we saw from our colleagues, in institutional weakness, so especially the state institution, Director General of Antiquities and Museums, all of these years was very far away of the international organization. Also for the political reason, all of us, we know, so DGAM was so abundant from the international community. And this is something which also we need to stick it and to think on it. Whatever happened with the political governmental organization now, and with the new government, DGAM should be really a very neutral organization and not linked to this, because this we suffered as Syrians, experts working in heritage, we suffered that always DGAM was connected to the political government consideration. And this was really a big catastrophe for Syria. So heritage should be not politicized as well. Destruction, we have huge damage of destructions in everywhere in Syria. We have community disconnection, millions of refugees, more than 50%, or around 50% of the Syrians are still refugees, and so little limited resources. For this new government in Damascus, is still struggle to have some recognition from the international community, which heritage is not a priority. So Syria and this movement needs a lot the support of the international community. So there are some of strategies which I think we should work and concentrate as well as international organization, and as well heritage experts and archaeologists who were working in Syria till 2011, the start of the Syrian conflict. First, we need to think, and this is important objective and goal of these next 2 years, assessment and prioritization. So we need to conduct a comprehensive evaluation of damage and risk heritage sites, prioritize intervention in the most important sites in Syria. This is a photo from Palmyra, and later my colleague Hassan Ali will talk about our new report which was published yesterday about the situation in Palmyra. So for the assessment and prioritizations, we need to work on site identification and mapping, cataloging Syrian significant heritage sites, and using satellite imagery for mapping and analysis, damage assessment, contacting on site or remote assessment as well to evaluate structural damage, looting, and environmental degradation, utilizing technology like drones and maybe as well 3D image. Stakeholder engagement involving archaeologists, historians, and cultural experts to align efforts and resources with the government, NGOs, and international organizations. Syrians now are suffering from, as we said, the lack of the experts, and we have many Syrians who were experts before 2011. They left the country, and we have still thousands of Syrians who were having a degree in archaeology, history, and all of those people during all of these 15 or 14 years of conflict, they were disconnected. So there is really now a need to link all of those Syrians who were far from engaging in heritage and archaeology to be again connected with the time. So those people need programs for training, as I said, in many issues. We need to talk about resource allocation and also trying to find the necessary resources for preservation, focusing on the most vulnerable sites first, reporting and documentation, coupling data into reports with evaluation and recommendation, and monitoring and updating. We need to establish a system to track progress and regularly update for the prioritization as a conditions evolve. Another important thing, which also I think we need to reflect, governance reform. So we have now a very weak system. We have a new phenomenon happened in Syria in the last 14 years during the conflict, which is the creation of new NGOs. So those new NGOs before, they were not really active. The government didn't allow those NGOs to work. Those NGOs, they were more active in the non-state actors regions. So all of those new NGOs, they need to be integrated as well to the new governance reform. DGAM have, and Syria has, a very weak legal system. So we need to modify the laws. We need to adapt as well the Syrian law with the international conventions. So our law is from 1963. Another important issue we need is capacity building, so train DGAM staff and local authorities, and also as well NGOs and modern conservations and documentations, techniques, digital tools, and participatory governance practice, which the participatory governance practice was a very absent during the years before the conflict and also during the conflict. Decentralization. So before the conflict, everything was very focused in Damascus, and the other provinces, they don't have the power to take this decision. So we need to make this big change to this centralization of the management. Stakeholder engagement, create, as I said, that platform to collaborate among DGAM, local governments, communities, NGOs, and international partners. We need, again, to bring Syria to the international sphere, and we need more and more collaboration between DGAM and as well the international organization, UNESCO, and global organizations as ICOMOS, ICOM, Blue Shield, and the international funders. DGAM was unfortunately disconnected because of the political situation from the international community. Reformers monitoring, establish metrics to evaluate governance reform with regular reviews and refine the strategies. We have Syria, we suffered from corruption, and we need really to think about this monitoring reformers of the implementation of the project. I just here want to share a very important project that we implemented with during the last years in collaboration as well with our colleague Emma Conleaf and with many others, who some of you as well here. So we are very grateful to all of those efforts to establish this platform with the support of the Gerda Henkel Foundation. So it's a system that it was created. We have 13 courses, Syrian heritage law training. So in this capacity building, it's a very complete resource that we developed over 8 years in order to empower as well Syrians on the legal training on heritage. So here you can see the courses. So we have international law, Syrian law, and also Islamic law. So this course brings the interaction between all of the three law. So we hope that in the future we will implement more this training for other Syrians in Syria and with DGAM. We need to work. Syrians, unfortunately, during Assad regime, were very disconnected from their heritage. And now there is really a need to work with community engagement. So community engagement, empower local communities to actively participate in preservation efforts and reconnect with their cultural identity. We have a fragile identity during 54 years of Assad and then 14 years of conflict. Syrians, they were suffering as well of this problem. We need to work now and to rebuild this new Syrian identity and connect this new Syrian identity as well with heritage, because also we have many risks now, especially with all of these problems that happened after the fall of Assad, and we are afraid of civil war, of as well techniques and tension. So Syrian heritage play an important role as well to rebuild the Syrian identity. We need to work more to bring Syrian heritage education to the schools. We need, as I said, to do a lot of awareness and education work with connect the community and inform that heritage is their ownership, and working from local heritage communities and encourage volunteering, preservation activity, provide micro grants for community-led heritage initiatives. We have many now in Syria. We need to really provide these micro grants, participatory governance, civil society, local communities, always were very far from engaging in any actions. So we need to involve communities in heritage policy making and collaborate with authorities and establish feedback mechanism. And then we need to work as well with monitoring and reporting. So in many cases, in many places in Syria, heritage authorities cannot arrive. So if we have really active local communities, so they can work to watch as well, monitor the size and damage, and use as well digital tools to document and share updates on heritage conditions. I just want to share here a very nice project. We did it in collaboration with a technical university of applied science in Utrecht in Holland. It's a project was designed to create books for heritage education in a member city. So with this, we worked very close to the team in Utrecht, and we developed this book. And this book, really, now we are aiming as well to develop this kind of tools for several places in Syria. This book also had the guidelines as well for the schools teacher, so the school teacher as well can bring how can teach heritage. So there is a very nice, simple, useful methodology, and this methodology we hope that we will engage more the Syrian school and the Syrian Ministry of Education on these programs.
Again, 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, I am finishing.
Here,
with recently, we are finishing. We have completed our project in Raqqa, and with the support of Cultural Protection Fund and RIA PMAID, and with a local partner in Raqqa, Rafiqatuna. With this project, we created now this place. It's restored. It was a huge house. So now we are aiming to make this a community hub center, in which this community hub center could serve as well for the heritage production and for train people in as well, especially Syrians on intangible heritage and crafts, and also to create a small museum in this huge building, because this huge building as well is close to a very important archaeological site, which is the Tel Bei'a site, which is very important archaeological sites. Again, also, we have the same as well desire to establish as well another community hub as well in member cities. So this is also part of our recent project in members. It was also supported by Cultural Protection Fund. So this is a hammam, an Ottoman hammam. Now it's restored, and we hope in the future we will use it as well as a community. Again, and now, as I am based and working as a researcher as the Spanish National Research Council, we are dedicating so much time and energy to research illicit traffic in Syria. So we have programs now, and we are trying to apply for several funding to establish projects on monitoring and illicit traffic and illicit antiquities from Syria, and also to develop more policy and research papers on the protection and the implementation of better management of Syrian cultural heritage. So this is, thank you very much, everyone. And I hope we will have time to discuss more about all of these issues.
Isber, thank you very much indeed. And our next speaker is Ristam Ebdo. Ristam, while you are sorting yourself out, and if you have a PowerPoint, please share it now. But while you're doing that, just a reminder to everybody that we hope that you will put your questions in the chat, and we can then have a fruitful and useful discussion afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much to give me a chance to be with you again. Unfortunately, I haven't PowerPoint this time, and I'd like to speak by Arabic. I think there's someone can translate by Arabic. There's someone can translate it
Yes,
to
indeed.
English. Yeah,
indeed they can, and no worry about the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Please carry on.
I would like to speak briefly this time. Last time, or in the past, I mentioned that a large part of the archaeological sites east of the Euphrates were violated and damaged. And more attention was given to the sites where some archaeological missions worked. There were several factors related to this, given the conflict and the lack of stability. When I say east of Euphrates, this covers a vast area of land. It's about 1/3 of the total area of Syria. There's more than 1,700 archaeological sites in this part of Syria. And before the conflict, there were about 30 missions from different countries. In the east of the Euphrates, there are antiquities directorates under the autonomous administration. These directorates were established between 2014 and 2017. Unfortunately, these directorates lack the expertise. Most employees are young people who don't have much experience, and generally speaking, there are no experts. This also applies to the area of Kobani, east of Aleppo, as well as in Al-Tabqa, west of Al-Raqqa. These directorates also lack the basic logistic equipment, things such as things related to protection, rehabilitation, etc. There's also lack of field workers to monitor the sites and protect them against any violations. In addition, the east of the Euphrates now lack many of the experts who used to work in this area, as many experts migrated, and it was very difficult to coordinate with the central with DGAM. The DGAM at the time rejected to send in experts, saying that these areas are outside of the control of the central government. I will mention now some needs in this area. We need to support civil societies or civil initiatives taking care of heritage, material and non-material heritage. We hope that soon these areas will be under the control of the central government. Second, building and rehabilitating capacity and building the capacity of young, new employees. During the conflict, we held some training courses or workshops. The most important of them was about documenting and remote sensing techniques. This was done in Erbil in Iraq in the summer of 2023. And the EMENO organization is still following up on that. Heritage for Peace is contributing as well. The third type of need is to educate security personnel and the police on dealing with archaeological sites. Fourth, creating a network of field observers who can cover the archaeological sites, and this is very important for protecting these sites. For example, in the past, there used to be about 100 observers and guards in Hasaka governorate alone. Now, in the entire east of the Euphrates, there are only about 60 guards. Number 5, we need to put in place a strategy on the protection of archaeological sites and to mitigate the risks to these sites. 6, an emergency plan if things go out of control again. There are many obstacles that there are many obstacles that make it difficult to counter violations and damage done to archaeological sites. There used to be about 1,200 pieces in Manbij, and all these pieces were documented, but we hear now that these pieces were or have disappeared from Manbij. So the lack of stability in these areas is a major challenge. Another obstacle is the lack of clear legal structure or legal environment. And my colleague has raised this point before. So this is an overview of the needs and challenges. Thank you so much.
Rustam, thank you very much indeed for that. And thank you very much for not only keeping to time, but being brief. So thank you. Hassan Ali, are you there?
Hello, everybody. Hello, Peter.
Hi. Do you have a PowerPoint?
I
Okay.
have a PowerPoint. Please give me share. I will speak Arabic.
Perfect. The share should work.
Yeah.
Yep, that's there. If you want to double click on it, you will get the full screen.
Hello, everyone. Today I will be presenting about Palmyra under the new administration in Syria, the current situation and the needs assessment in the region. Very briefly, I'm going to talk about Palmyrian Voices Initiative. It is a civil society initiative. Its mission is to provide a space for the voices of the people of Palmyra to reach the international community and to support the people of Palmyra in diaspora to return to their home towns and to rebuild their city, and to ensure preserving their identity. This initiative was launched in 2020 in collaboration with Asper Sabrin by me and me, of course. Currently, it includes a number of international and local volunteers, including researchers, archaeologists, architects, filmmakers, and local professionals. This initiative managed to successfully complete a number of projects focusing on preservation and documentation of the tangible and intangible heritage in the region, documenting wool and leather productions from different locations. And we've published a number of articles. These efforts were supported by the British Museum and EMKP program. Also, we have a project to support traditional crafts to ensure its sustainability. It was supported by Idleb from Switzerland. You can get further details about our work through our website, and I'm going to share the link in the chat. This is a photo from our website. You can see that we have published a number of articles as open access, and it's available in Arabic and English. Talking in general about Palmyra, following the fall of Assad on December 8, 2024, hundreds of displaced families returned to the city, and they took the initiative to report on the current situation in the region. The situation for residents, as Muhammad Faris, our volunteer, noted, the situation is witnessing very poor conditions. It's estimated that 80% of the buildings are fully destroyed, and many others are at the risk of collapsing. The remains of unexploded ordnance and many mines are still scattered all over the place. So far, none of the local security forces affiliated with the current administration entered the country. 2 days ago, only one patrol affiliated with the current administration entered the region. We are still yet to see what role they'll play there. As for the basic services related to health and education, it's almost non-existent. The residents are suffering from extreme poverty. Many cannot secure the basic needs. In the current number of residents is only around 10,000 people, which is equivalent to around 10% of the total population. those returnees fully depend on support from and remittance from outside, mainly from relatives abroad. As I've mentioned, total absence of basic services, including health and education. Recently, one school was opened and it provides primary and secondary education. In the Oasis area, in 2020, the western part of it was subjected to large fire that led to losing around half of that region. The remaining area, the trees are completely suffering from a drought. The field assessment also showed that the region suffered from severe damage due to the various attacks by the different parties to the conflict, including the citadel and the theater, in addition to the buildings that were blown by ISIS, such as the Temple of Bel and Baal Shamin. Other military violations that took place after 2013 onwards, various violations took place, many of which were documented, including some by the Russian forces in the northern part of the archaeological site. As for Palmyra Museum, the garden contains many heavy statues, many of which are broken or damaged. Only a small number of it is still in good condition. The museum structure was subjected to airstrikes, causing holes and gaps in the ceiling. Some of the museum's collections were moved to Damascus and they've not been sent back to Palmyra yet. Currently, the museum is closed and it's being protected by the DGAM staff and other volunteers. Those volunteers are not affiliated with any formal or government institutions, and they are not receiving any support or reimbursement for their work. Currently, the museum is not being supervised by any entities, nor the archaeological site in general, though it's essential to preserve this area and to ensure that no one is tampering with this heritage. We hope that the situation will improve. These photos show the extent of damage sustained. These photos are from the residential area and then the oasis. This photo is of someone who returned to his home, but he could not find his home and he found only the rubbles. This is the oasis after the fire and the drought. As you may know, the Palmyra Oasis is one of the oldest around the world, and it is part of the cultural heritage that should have been preserved. Here you can see the citadel, the theater, and other artifacts that are currently in the museum. The main recommendations that we'd like to put forward, these expand over different levels and sectors, and they include the residential area, archaeological site, and the oasis. First of all, it's important to document all buildings in the ancient city, and it's important to intensify efforts and send specialized teams to ensure accurate documentation and to also provide an evaluation of the extent of the damage sustained and to document also the remaining and preserved architectural elements. The team of Palmyran Voices have the capacity to conduct this work if supported by the Syrian Directorate General of Antiquities and Museum. As for the residential city, it is important to conduct an assessment and to provide rehabilitation for the infrastructure to ensure safe and dignified return. The same applies to the oasis. It's important to replant the oasis and to preserve the remaining artifacts that are spread throughout it. We have now an opportunity to preserve these artifacts given the limited vegetation in the oasis. The current situation requires urgent action from official entities, humanitarian organizations, civil society organizations, and collaboration with local communities. Of course, following the essential work of removing mines and unexploded ordnance, and providing basic services including water network, health and education mainly. The current political change that Syria has been witnessing is a vital point that Syria is going through, and it's important to ensure that the new political administration in Syria puts an end to the projects that were commissioned previously in collaboration with Russia, and to replace them by national projects that ensure preserving the cultural heritage. Also, the archaeological sites should be provided with security staff to ensure no one tampers with the remaining artifacts. The authorities also are expected to provide the services that would encourage local communities to return to their home areas. Also, raising awareness about the value of the cultural heritage among the local community in the region and the wider area in Syria is essential, and to ensure the sustainability of the preservation efforts through this awareness raising. And the last point is about involving the local community in the decision-making process, and to ensure that they will determine the future of their city, and to include them in the authorities that are protecting the area. That's all from my side.
Hassan, thank you very much indeed. Again, a fascinating
Thank you very much.
contribution.
Thanks.
And thank you also for being shorter than your allocated time. We have not only caught up, but we are now ahead of time. So that's great. We have one more speaker before the next scheduled break, Amar Kanawi from Simat. Amar, are you there? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amar Kinawi from Simat. Thank you for inviting me here. I will be speaking Arabic, please. Can you see my slides? Can you hear me?
Sorry, yes, we can hear you. We can see your slides, so please carry on.
I'll be speaking today about the city of Aleppo, the ancient city of Aleppo, one of the most important Syrian cities, It was one of the major victims of the war in Syria. I will focus as well on Aleppo Museum, as I belong to Aleppo Museum. And I'll try to reach some conclusions or identify some needs. I believe the needs in Aleppo are similar to needs in other areas in Syria. I'll start with some of the political changes in Syria and how they impacted heritage. Different authorities took control of Aleppo, and these authorities had different impacts on the heritage level. The revolutionaries took control of the east of Aleppo, including large part of the old part of Aleppo. They controlled it between 2012 and 2016. During their control, the city was subject to heavy shelling by the regime, which damaged a lot of archaeological sites and eliminated or removed, completely destroyed some sites. In addition, some tunnels were blown up, which resulted in the destruction of some sites. Between 2016 and 2024, the regime forces regained control of Aleppo completely. During these years, there were no clashes or shellings. The only damage that happened in these years was the earthquake in 2023. As I said, the regime forces controlled the entire city of Aleppo, and the regime tried to use the heritage file to gain political gains, political advantages, and to push for normalization. The same happened in Palmyra. So the regime started rehabilitating some damaged sites, but unfortunately, most of these rehabilitation works were done in the less damaged sites. So maybe they chose the sites that would not be very expensive to rehabilitate. This was done in partnership with different international organizations. Despite the sanctions on the regime, I believe the regime used an organization called the Syrian Trust, the Syrian Development Trust. It was affiliated with Asma al-Assad directly. And this trust monopolized most of the work in relation to archaeological sites. Actually, it superseded the work of the DGAM. It had more authority than the DGAM. So in the past years, some khans, buildings in old Aleppo were rehabilitated or restored. During the earthquake, Aleppo walls were damaged, as well as the minaret of the mosque. Some colleagues and myself had a tour after the liberation of Syria, and we inspected different sites in Aleppo. We found that some of the restored buildings were damaged again after the restoration started. The third stage is the current stage after the victory of the Syrian revolution and after the revolutionaries regained control of Aleppo. And now it's a very important stage for reconstruction and rehabilitation. The opposition groups headed by the Deterrence of Aggression Operation Room took control of Aleppo in a matter of 3 days. So this quick victory ensured that there wasn't any damage to the city. The Syrian regime forces withdrew from the city, and later the Assad regime collapsed, and now Syria is entirely free. Following this, thousands of previously displaced people came back to their city. This quick return of the residents resulted in some risks to the city because the old city is not rehabilitated and is not ready to accommodate the residents. Most of these residents returned just to check the new situation and to see how things are. I speak now about the Aleppo Museum. I speak about Aleppo Museum from 2011 to 2024. The museum was heavily damaged because it was close to the front lines between opposition and regime forces. The clashes resulted in structural damage to the museum because of the shelling, the explosions, etc. However, the archaeological pieces themselves, the artifacts, were not significantly damaged. I remained in Aleppo Museum until 2014 and took part of most of the projects that took place until then. These projects included transferring the precious artifacts to the Central Bank of Aleppo, as well as covering all the outdoors artifacts, securing the warehouses, etc. After I left Aleppo Museum, most of the artifacts at the museum were transferred to Damascus. These were transferred for two reasons: to protect them from shelling, and the second reason was the underground water. There's a problem with the underground water at the museum, and they wanted to preserve the antiquities there. In 2019, the museum was partially reopened. Only 2 halls on the ground floor were opened. And the pieces that were sent to the Central Bank of Aleppo were regained and showcased in these halls. However, the other parts of the museum are still in chaos. Some of the original houses are now used as warehouses. Some artifacts from other missions were transferred to these halls, and they are stored there. In the upper story or upper floor, which was more damaged by shelling, it's now abandoned completely. It's structurally damaged, and it can't be used for showcasing artifacts now. major challenges facing the Museum of Aleppo. The first one, and this is a common challenge across Syria, it's the management of human resources. Employees at Aleppo Museum are still working at the museum. Some guards were appointed or deployed to the museum to protect it. But other sites or museums were not are not protected in the same manner. Another challenge is the lack of experts and experienced people. Many experts and experienced workers left Syria, and we're not sure whether the current administration, the interim government, can encourage experts who left Syria to go back. Even if they come back, I believe they need capacity building, and they need like catch-up courses maybe to upgrade their experience and expertise and to catch up with other employees. Another challenge is the fate of projects previously signed with the Assad regime. Aleppo Museum signed different projects to rehabilitate and to obtain some logistical services or equipment. For example, they signed projects with UNDP and with an Italian organization. These projects are now suspended while the new situation gets clearer. As I said, the Assad regime sought normalization and sought political gains through these projects. These projects were politically driven. So we need to reconsider these projects and to check how feasible these projects are and how important or well planned they are. So these projects need to be re-evaluated. For example, Aleppo Museum I have good knowledge of Aleppo Museum, and I'm aware of the classical antiquities. The Italian organization that I mentioned visited the museum only once, and I don't think that one visit is enough to evaluate the situation and to start working. Another challenge is the possibility of reopening the museum. As I said, the basement of the museum suffers from groundwater issues. There are structural damage because of the earthquake and the shelling. So it needs some structural evaluation to determine whether it can be restored or whether it needs to be demolished and rebuilt. As I mentioned, most of the artifacts at Aleppo Museum were sent to Damascus, and we need to consider whether it's time to return them to Aleppo or to keep them in Damascus, whether Damascus museums can accommodate all these artifacts, whether these artifacts are kept in a safe way. Of course, we can't return them before proper warehouses are secured. So now we have some recommendations for for the next stage. We need to carry out an inventory of all archaeological collections and pieces and determine the needs related to these collections. The museum can be partially reopened, but we cannot resume work in the entire museum before it's restored and completely rehabilitated. The next point might be a difficult one. We need to consider the possibility of starting a completely new museum, and this can be part of the reconstruction program in Aleppo. As I said, the current museum is already damaged and we have a serious underground and moisture issue. So maybe establishing a new museum can be better or more feasible than maintaining or restoring the current one. Here you can see some images before and after of one of the halls in the upper floor. One last thought. We are speaking about re-evaluation, about rehabilitation, etc. But we don't focus enough on humanitarian archaeology or human archaeology. Here you can see myself with two of my colleagues. We were separated for long years, but we were reunited after the liberation of Syria. We had worked on preserving archaeological sites and artifacts in conflict areas over the past 10 years. We were supported by different international organizations. They didn't support specific projects, rather they supported the team working on preserving the artifacts and sites. So their support enabled us to continue with our work and to have emergency interventions, to raise awareness, to implement some projects. So I believe archaeological experts, archaeological workers are among the victims of the war and they need support. There are many small teams working across Syria and we need to support these teams. We need to provide technical support as well as financial support to enable them to carry on with their work. I hope I didn't talk too long. Thank you so much.
Amar, you didn't speak too long. You were perfect. Thank you. Thank you. We now have a break. We are due back at 14:55. And in that time, we will organize all of the questions that we've had and allocate people to respond to them and then open a general discussion. So if you could be back with us at 14:55 in 15 minutes. Yeah, okay, so we're getting more questions coming in. If you please have a question, put it as quickly as possible into the chat and we will try and get all of the questions answered as quickly as possible. Thank you very much. We'll be back at 5 to 3, 14:55. Thank you all for coming back. I hope everybody is with us who wants to be. We have had a conversation about who will try and start the answers to some of the questions, and we'll try and get through all of the questions, or at least as many as we can. But we have scheduled at the moment an hour and a half still, so I think we should be fine. So, excuse me. I should also say that unfortunately, Ristam Edbo has had to leave, as has Mohammed Al Masri, and at the last check, the Mr. Zaidan, the Director General, was having difficulty reconnecting.
Excuse me, Björn.
Oh, he's here.
He entered. Yeah, he's with us.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. So, the first question was about geopolitical issues impacting on this work, and Isba is going to start the answer to that.
So Syria now is thank you, Peter, for this. Syria is now a very difficult geopolitical situation. For tens of years, we were very close. The Syrian government was very close to Iran and Israel, and now the situation is changed. The geopolitical situation also changed so much. So we don't. We have many big problems as well. So especially with what is happening, because Syria is now trying to be more closer. This new government in Damascus want to be more closer to the Western government, and also the United States, and also to the Gulf countries. So and this is really not easy, you know. So the government tried to always to make many meetings with Minister of Foreign Affairs. The United States also State Departments came to Syria. So I think the government is really trying to gain credibility and as well legitimacy, and this is very dangerous for us now, because there is a lack as well of being more connected to the Syrian. So just to let you know, we don't really know what are the plans. So they are, like they say, they will be in the power till September, till March, and March in 1 month and a half. So there is still a lot of work to be done. On the other hand, the UN and all the international organization, they are still don't have really a clear scenario for the situation in Syria. Now everyone will be more focused on international help and also on humanitarian aid, especially humanitarian aid, and getting the refugees back. So heritage, and for all of this big mass of what is happening in Syria, heritage is now really not a priority for this government, not a priority as well for the big international organization and for big countries. So therefore, we really need now to work as specialists and as an organization and as funders and as Blue Shield, all the funders as well as us who are in this. We need really to think about working with even more supporting civil society organization. We have really good civil society organizations. They were very involved in difficult situations in Syria. So we need to build up those people. We need, because we really And this is the mistake that we are worried about. So the international community will repeat the same mistake that always DGAM was affiliated to the political government or to the government. And this was a mistake because, look, from 2011 till now, the DGAM was disconnected. All of those archaeologists who were very active in Syria, they were very far from all of this here. So we need really to make clear to the international community that Syrian heritage should be neutral, should be not connected to the politics. This is my question to how we will react with the geopolitical situation in Syria.
Okay, thank you. Does any of the other speakers want to add to that response? I think the only other thing I would add is that, of course, Syria is not the only country, but Lebanon, Palestine, etc., who are all in a similar boat, Yemen, all who have massive destruction of their cultural heritage sites and major threats. So it's not just as if it's only one country. There are at least 4, if not many more, that are facing the same problem. And the international community has got to try and work out how to support each of those. Okay, so the next question was, how can international organizations like Blue Shield and Heritage for Peace work more effectively with local actors to improve heritage protection in Syria? So if I can very quickly respond to that, one of the ways that we're doing it is by having organized these 2 webinars so that we find out what is most urgent from the point of view of those people working and living in Syria, and trying to adapt the opportunity for us to help to address those issues. So that's one other thing. We hope to have somebody from Blue Shield in Syria very shortly, and they will talk to as many people as possible to again ascertain what the priorities are. So that's how we're doing. We want to react to what those in Syria need the most. But as I say, we're also trying to do that in terms of Lebanon and elsewhere, which is not an easy task when we are a small organization. Does anybody else want to add to that? Okay, I don't hear anybody there. So let's go to the next question. What technical resources are training are lacking the most to better document and restore damaged heritage sites? And Lena, you were going to answer that to begin with.
Okay, I'll speak in Arabic.
Thank you.
There is a huge need in order to preserve and restore the archaeological sites. And in order to do so, we do need several types of trainings, and that includes a mix of traditional methods and more contemporary methods, such as analysis. We need to train our teams on how to analyze the situation and to how to document it, including the use of GIS and satellite imagery. We need to train our teams on how to collect data and how to use the data that they've collected. We need to ensure that the infrastructure for our documentation, for our process is well established, and our teams are well prepared to use it in order not to lose any of the data that we will work on collecting. The other aspect of the training that's required is how to build a strategic plan for interventions. We need to consider how to do that in collaboration with international actors who might share their expertise in this regard. And we need also to carry out consultations with the local community before finalizing that strategy. We need also to prepare the content that we can share with the population in general for awareness raising. So developing the content itself after identifying the key topics that we need to talk about is also something that we can benefit from training and experience of others in. Also, of course, funding is required in order to implement any of the projects that we have in mind, whether it is about awareness raising or documentation.
Okay, thank you, Lena. Anybody else want to add to that? Okay, not at the moment. There was a question from Stephen. Stephen, I'm going to murder your second name, Domakipi, about if we could put the questions in the chat. They are in the chat, and I'm going through them from the top down. So you'll find them towards the top of the discussion in the chat. Next question is, what are the current threat levels from extremist groups or other actors deliberately destroying heritage sites, and how can this be best addressed? And again, Lena, you were going to start on that.
Yes. I will also answer in Arabic.
Thank you, of course.
Your question is about the مستوى التهديد اللي بتشكله الجماعات المتطرفة. هذا هو السؤال؟ صح؟ أنا فهمت صح؟ في ترجمة؟ ألو؟
Hello, sorry, we can hear you, yes.
Yes. Would you please repeat the question because I forget.
What is the current level from extremist groups or other actors deliberately destroying heritage sites, and how can this be best addressed?
Yes.
Extremist groups have targeted several sites in Syria. Some of which were due to ideological motives. For example, when ISIS was taking control of Palmyra, it destroyed a large number of monuments there and exploded on purpose very valuable ones. In addition, these groups vandalized and smuggled many of the iconic pieces in Syria. The illegal excavations also were taking place under the control of those groups. The armed violence and clashes also led to a massive destruction. So now it is essential that we continue to raise awareness among the community, as I've mentioned earlier, in order to enable the local communities to play an essential role in preserving these archaeological sites. Previously, those groups used the local communities, and now we need to do the opposite. We need to enable the local community to limit the impact of extremist groups on archaeological sites. We need to enable the community to form monitoring committees. Of course, we need to provide them with training and to provide them with training specifically on monitoring and reporting. This would be linked to the potential training on use of technology, including drones, for the monitoring process. And we hope that the international community will be funding this work in order to minimize any future further damage. And also that should be part of our urgent response to the current situation in Syria.
نعم.
Okay, thank you very much, Lina. Does anybody else want to mention anything?
ممكن
Amal.
ممكن
Yeah, I'd like to share an example here. In 2022, a number of statues from Palmyra were seized, and they were then displayed in the museum. Several media outlets covered that exposition. One of the extremist groups shared a tweet after we've managed to reseize the artifacts and we prepared an exposition to review them. The media coverage led to the news of that spreading, and at the time some of the extremist group were criticizing this exposition, and they said now the work of infidels is taking place. And they were, at the time, criticizing specifically Al-Jolani, who allowed this exposition to take place. In response to that, the Salvation government that was ruling Idleb at the time assigned a number of security officers to provide the protection for the museum. However, we need to acknowledge that it is not possible to allocate enough human resources to provide the same level of protection to all the archaeological sites around Syria. And also we need to admit that the current Syrian administration does not have full control over all extremist groups in Syria.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Amar. Anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I just like to something here, which is I mean, when we started with our project, which is a project which I mentioned, Syrian Heritage training program, it was also thought about the Islamic law and how we can bring as well, and it was really sought to involve, especially the Islamic courts in Idlib at the moment when the Salafist and Islamist group were in Idlib. So Emma and the team, they worked very hard in order to find evidence about the relation between Islam and cultural heritage. And I think Emma can also add more to this. So our objective was how we really could train as well people like imams in order to show all of this research that was done to explain the relation between Islam and cultural heritage. And actually, we need more to work on that because always there is this risk, especially now, because as Ammar said, that there are many still risks that Islamistic Salafistic group as well, which are also one of those groups now in Syria, they could hurt and also destroy heritage. So we need to raise awareness that Islam is not against the cultural heritage protection.
Sorry, I was mute. Okay, thank you for that. The next question is a very specific one. If you in Syria could make a request to the German government for support of Syria's cultural heritage, what exactly would you request? Hassan?
Yeah, I prepared in Arabic because I have more information about that. I will speak in Arabic.
Yep.
The priorities. I just would like to note that I'm going to speak with regard to Palmyra specifically. The priorities are, first of all, clearing the mines and unexploded ordnance spread in the region. So far, during the last month only, we have more than or around a dozen of incidents that led to killing civilians due to mines exploding. The second is the training for museum staff in order to allow them to well manage the museum itself and to provide them with a training that would enable them to communicate well with different actors who would be in the near future hopefully involved in the rehabilitation and restoration process. Another priority is conducting an evaluation of the current situation of the site and its artifacts. And to digitize this documentation or to document this evaluation in a digitized way that would be accessible to stakeholders. Based on such documentation of evaluation will enable us to identify and prioritize restoration interventions. And based on that, tools, materials, consumables, and so on will be identified. Another priority is establishing a new museum or exposition where we can share the customs and traditions, the non-tangible heritage, because it's equally important to document this aspect. As for the oasis, also a lot of work is required, and given the fire that took place and the limited vegetation in the oasis right now, we have an opportunity to document the artifacts that were not documented before. And we hope that through awareness raising, we are going to encourage the local community to return the artifacts that they've seized and moved from the site previously. We need to admit that Syria so far has lacked any awareness raising initiatives with regard to tangible or intangible heritage. In any approach that we start to implement now, we need to ensure that the local community is engaged, starting with the design of any intervention. This is, in summary, the priorities from my perspective.
Sam, thank you very much. Isba?
I can add to this. just I want to tell something very clear, and we are very grateful since more than 14 years to the German government. The German government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Auswärtigen Amt, did a great work in order to support the Syrian cultural heritage protection. So they funded the Bergman Museum and also the German Archaeological Institute to create a Syrian Heritage Archival project. So since 2013, the German government is giving money to Syrian Heritage Archival project. Also, I want here also to highlight that Gerda Henkel Foundation also played a very important role to support the Syrians. From the beginning of the conflict, Gerda Henkel Foundation supported many Syrian scholars. They also supported, and they have joined a project with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Germany. So those projects also supported, for example, through Syrian Heritage Archival project as well, projects in Aleppo. So they did many projects and many initiatives in Aleppo. And they still, also they supported Hassan all of these years, Gerda Henkel, as well to lead all of this work in Palmyra. And just also something which we need to acknowledge, that the German government was very clear about the importance of continuing supporting Syrian heritage. Other European countries that didn't make that before. We see in 2017, and then came the Cultural Protection Fund and also did great work and supporting us and others in Syria. But what I want to say, the Germans from the beginning in 2012, 13 till now, they are supporting. So we need really to, and we hope that the German government also will continue those efforts. They supported Syrians and Syrian heritage projects with millions. And this is really, we appreciate that, and we need them to be more involved through the German Archaeological Institute as well, who Damascus was a very important station for the German Archaeological Institute. And the German also missions, there were so many, there were, I think, more than 20 missions or 25 missions. So universities, German universities, they should come back as well to think about how they can assist in this situation.
Isba, thank you very much for that.
ممكن أضيف can I add something also to the German cooperation?
Yeah, please do.
Over the past years, we cooperated with GTZ in Old Aleppo. It helped with planning the city. The services and the infrastructure provided was very good. And we hope that, in addition, GTZ has full documentation and data of the area. Unfortunately, during the conflict years, we lost a lot of data. We lost a lot of data and documents. So I hope that collaborating with them and reviving Old Aleppo is very important and very urgent. GTZ also provided loans for restoring buildings. They provide loans for residents. As I said in my presentation, in Damascus, there are major planning issues. In addition, we collaborated with the German Archaeological Institute with regard to documentation and digital maps. We provided them with information about the current situation. Information about Palmyra. However, now the buffer zone in Palmyra has expanded, and the new area is not planned or documented. We don't have updated plans for the buffer zone. As far as I know, the Germans worked only on the old city, so now we need to add the buffer zone and the surrounding, as well as the tombs and the cemetery, which is an essential part of Palmyra. I believe we don't have topographical maps. We don't have aerial images. We don't have the necessary equipment for that. They also provided training at the beginning of the conflict in 2012 and 13. They provided trainings. Some teams from DGAM, received GIS trainings, digital maps, evaluation, emergency intervention, etc. And this training improve the skills of the employees. We hope that this support will go on and expand.
Okay, thank you very much there. Hassan, did you want to say anything more?
ممكن
I need to say something about Lina Kutaifan.
I have something to say about what Ms. Lina said. The Palmyrian Voices team still has a lot of, we have a lot of information and data, including zones, zone plans, topographical maps. And hopefully when we are back in Syria, we will provide the DGAM with these data. So I'll share this data. I have had these information for more than 10 years, and I kept them on my personal level. Thank you for this. This will be very helpful.
Okay, Hassan, thank you very much.
Peter, we have
Isabel.
Anas Zidan who is with us now. He want to answer.
Okay, please.
تفضل دكتور أنس تفضل.
I would like to speak about our current policy of work. Can you hear me well? Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
The current government is keen on protecting archaeological sites, and we can see this. This is visible for everyone. This includes deploying policemen and guards to different sites and museums. They did so from the very beginning, the first moment of the repression, whether in Aleppo, Damascus, etc. Policemen are also sent to prevent illegal excavation work. In addition, different media outlets in Syria are providing news pieces and reports aimed at raising awareness of the public with regard to their heritage. The government is also working on reclaiming lost or stolen artifacts. There were some cases in rural Damascus, in Palmyra, etc. The government is also facilitating the entry of international organizations and other specialized teams that can work with DGAM. This activity was very visible over the past 2 weeks. Several international organizations and other teams visited the DGAM in Damascus.
Okay, thank you very much for that contribution. Does anybody else want to add anything? No. Okay. Just to alert you, Isba has put into the chat 2 links to the recent Heritage for Peace report on Palmyra. So if you haven't seen those, the links are there in the chat. The next question is whether the assessment and attribution of damage to heritage is a priority, either with regard to potential prosecutions or reconciliation tribunals, or is the need to rehabilitate at speed likely to outweigh any thought around investigation of heritage crimes? We've got Hassan down to start the answer on this, but I'm sure others may want to come in, including the Director General. Hassan.
I'm sorry, just I need to repeat the question.
Okay, I'll repeat the question. Whether the assessment and attribution of damage to heritage is a priority, either with regard to potential prosecutions or reconciliation tribunals, or is the need to rehabilitate at speed likely to outweigh any thoughts around investigation of heritage crimes?
في الحقيقة I will speak Arabic.
In fact, priorities the priority is for re-evaluating or reassessment of damages of the sites that can be provided with emergency interventions, such as the Arc of Triumph or the auditorium. After that, we need to focus on the sites that were blown up and destroyed completely, as these sites are more difficult to restore. First, we need to have 3D documentation and 3D models. Some Russian companies, I heard, provided or prepared 3D models of the Temple of Bel and the Arc of Triumph. So similar 3D models should be provided for all major sites in Palmyra. As for rehabilitation or restoration, as I mentioned earlier, the facade of the theater and the Arc of Triumph need urgent intervention. Some tombs, some underground tombs that were preserved by the DGAM between 2012 and 2015 need to be restored and exhibited. We need probably to establish a visitors center. We need mobile WCs, toilets. We also need other tourism-related services, such as camel tours, tour guides, cafes. The infrastructure in general, including hotels, etc., need to be taken care of. there are no functioning hotels in Palmyra right now. There are no cafes. Markets are destroyed. So the rehabilitation of the infrastructure and the residential quarters is very important. Thank you.
Hassan, thank you. Amar, did you want to add something?
These recommendations are very important. So I would like to request that our colleagues send these suggestions and recommendations in an official paper. I believe Esper will write up all the recommendations based on these meetings and will share these or share a copy with DGAM. I am very glad to be here, but I have to leave now as I have another meeting.
Okay, thank you very
Mr.
much. Thank you very much for being
Thank you
with us.
very much.
Thank you, and we will be in
دكتور عن
touch.
الصلاة يعطيك العافية.
إن شاء الله نلتقي جميعا.
I hope we'll meet in person in Syria soon.
إن شاء الله.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Amar,
يلا.
Thank you.
In response to the question, I believe this question poses a challenge for us. Will we be able to evaluate the damages and then work on investigations? I don't think so, because different actors were involved in crimes against heritage, including looting, sabotage, shelling, use of armed force, etc. So if we start rehabilitation between investigation and before taking testimonies and collecting evidence, this will adversely impact the investigation. So we need to work at the same time on evaluating the damages as well as collecting evidence and documenting evidence. For example, we try to charge Russia with an attack on the Deir Sam'an or Saint Simon monastery. It was attacked although there were no military presence. We wanted to report this, but unfortunately, the local actors used a bulldozer to remove the rubble, and this way the evidence was lost. We were not able to prove the attack or the perpetrators. So we need to work on collecting any evidence that can help with future prosecution. I believe NGOs can help with this. The government or the official authorities are more limited by the laws governing their work. So NGOs and other organizations can be more flexible, let's say. And to be honest, all different actors were involved in violations to archaeological sites. And some of the officials or leaders of these actors are now in power and are now in senior positions in the government. So it will not be an easy job.
Thank you, Ammar. Just something which also I need to highlight here. I mean, one of the objectives of our shelter project was to train people on how they can collect evidence of crimes. So we talk in our training about different kind of crimes related to cultural heritage. So we hope that our project could really play an important role to raise awareness about the heritage crimes. And now something also is happening, and this is very, very sad, and I just want like to share with you, and especially in the northeast of Syria. And now we can see that there were many still battles, and especially in the Minbij area now. There are groups which they are affiliated to Turkey. I mentioned to some of you that just 2 or 3 weeks ago, those groups which they are affiliated to the Turkish government, which are Syrian group called the Syrian National Army, looted around 1,400 objects. So now there is a big risk that those battles, especially happening now, we have evidence, and we need, and I think this is one of the things which also we don't also know how the situation will be with the northeast, especially the autonomous factor in northeast Syria, how the situation will be, because there is a huge risk of conflict. And hundreds of archaeological sites are threatened because of this conflict, which could happen any time. We hope now with that the Syrians, they need help, they need international community, they need Americans. We hope with a new government and new administration in Washington, that could be taken in consideration. So again, as well, what is this, how we can also, I mean, we have many documented crimes from ISIS, from Syrian regime. My question is, the International Criminal Court is able now to make a prosecution against Assad or against Daesh, even against some of those military groups as well. They took the power, some of them, they were involved, and we have evidence. So this is a big question. Now, again, we have many other crimes, which is thousands of Syrians that were killed. We saw all of us the disaster and what is happening in Sednaya Karso, Sednaya jail. So all of these kind of things, how we can bring as well the international, there are as well investigations against the crimes of the regime, thousands and even millions of documents. We have all of them, they are documented. So how we will bring this as well to the attention, the International Criminal Court, who could make this? We need really to reflect on all of these questions.
Thank you, Isba. Yes. Nothing is going to be easy in Syria for the foreseeable future. Okay, the next question talks about the needs of intangible cultural heritage, and it comes with a link that had been put up just before the question arrived, with a link by Hassan to the project Palmyra Voices. So Hassan, without further ado, over to you about intangible cultural heritage.
Yes, okay. I will speak a little about the intangible heritage in Syria.
In Syria, this kind of heritage is kind of ignored or sidelined. So I encourage the Ministry of Culture or the DGAM to create a core team of qualified staff, maybe in each governorate or in each center, a core team to document intangible heritage. Such teams will document all types of intangible heritage in different areas of Syria and will raise awareness about the importance of this heritage. This includes traditions, norms, local dialects, clothes, local food. Different types of art, such as Debke. As far as I can see, very little attention is paid to these types of heritage. Traditional crafts need to be taken care of and to be preserved. We need to qualify new teams who can work on the traditional crafts in Syria. Thank you.
Sad, thank you very much. Does anybody else want to mention anything about intangible cultural heritage?
نعم.
Thank you.
Yes?
نعم لو سمحت.
As Mr. Hassan said, I agree that the intangible heritage is ignored. There used to be a department or section in the Ministry of Culture about popular heritage. It wasn't called intangible heritage. But in all cases, there wasn't enough attention about this. And this actually impacted the way even some tangible sites were handled. There were some work about poetry, music, popular songs, but other areas of intangible heritage were not worked on. For example, some details are churches, about traditional agriculture norms, etc. And due to the lack of attention on intangible heritage, we lost a lot of important things related to our identity, and we need to pay more attention to it in the coming future. Just a quick comment. I am currently working on a book on the intangible heritage of Syria in the 20th century. I hope this book will projects with regard to intangible heritage in different areas in Syria. I have done my best for this book to be comprehensive and encompass different types of intangible heritage in Syria. Thank you.
I just would like to add something here. We have millions of Syrian refugees. We have hundreds of thousands of Syrian children that were born in refugees camps. Those children, and they don't know anything about Syria. They don't know really, all what they know about Syria is war, is bad news, is horrible things. So we need really as well to work and use especially the intangible heritage as well as element to heal and to give psychological support to the Syrian. I mean, especially to the Syrian kids, because we have maybe 1 million or million and a half of those Syrian children. They were out without good education. So I think as well in the reconstruction and also in the refugees coming back to Syria, we need really to use intangible cultural heritage as well as an element to give psychological support to the kids, and a lot of as well Syrians who will come back. We have many places and we have many memorial places. Not just we talk about mosque or about they are destroyed. So we need to rebuild memorial archiving of the places, because as we saw in many cities, they are destroyed totally, and there are a lot of memories. I mean, I was looking to some projects in Belfast and in North Ireland, how they use the archive memory as well to rebuild, especially the places. So, for example, a lot of Syrians, they have photos of their past. So all of this, we need really to think about how we can bring this more to the community and work not just with the tangible heritage. We need to use as well intangible heritage for the reconciliation and for the well-being of the Syrians.
Thank you, Isbert. Yes, I'm reminded of a project run by the Lebanese NGO Biladi for the children from Syrian families in refugee camps in Lebanon, called Syria in My Mind. And it was exactly that. It was trying to teach the Syrian kids, many of whom had never seen any of this, never heard about any of it, about their heritage, and getting their parents involved to try and talk to the children about the heritage sites and the heritage and the intangible cultural heritage. So some work was being done, but obviously it was a fairly small project, but hopefully it did some good. Okay. We've got two questions that are very similar. So firstly, how can protection of cultural heritage be operationalized to help build an inclusive and stable society? And then secondly, how can culture and cultural assets in this fluctuating situation be placed in new framing in order to be integrated into the process of reconstruction and political and economic restructuring, for example? So I think both of those are very pertinent. And we say at Blue Shield that one of our aspirational visions is to help maintain or create healthy, peaceful, stable, secure, sustainable communities, because it's on those communities that can be built peaceful societies. And it's by putting heritage into that sort of framework of reconstruction, economic restructuring, getting the money to the people who are living close to the sites, that can facilitate that a lot. And in a different situation, we're dealing with trying to find the funding to pay for site guards again, who haven't been paid for over 2 years. So it's those sorts of things I think there can be. But would anybody else like to pick that up, about how to use heritage to help rebuild and move on into the future? Anybody? Okay, well, we can come back to that in a minute.
I can add something on that.
Briefly, but please do.
Yeah. So we need really to think about using heritage for now, right now, Syrians, they are suffering from a brutal economical situation. 90% of the Syrians, they are very, very poor. The Syrian salary now was around like 30 euro. So we need all kind of cultural heritage projects. They should also think now on being humanitarian, some of kind of humanitarian help. We saw that through our experience with implementing some projects, just one project could create really 70 jobs, not big projects. So we need to think, and now what is important for all heritage projects, to create a job for the Syrians. Also, we can train Syrians to, especially with the intangible, with the crafts, to create income generating project, because now the needs and the economical need is huge, and the Syrians, they are starving of this situation. So heritage also should be considered as an element to create a job and well-being as well for this time, for this period.
Okay, thank you for that, Isba. Going through then some other questions.
We had a fruitful experience in Al Hassan Castle in Homs during the restoration work in collaboration with the Hungarian experts and in collaboration with Syrian NGOs. The restoration work that took place employed local workers from the local community residing in the vicinity of the castle. The duration of the project lasted for around 4 years, and it contributed to return of displaced population to their home areas in that location, given the job opportunities. Another example is another small project to revive the water spring in that region as well. The rehabilitation project was funded by an international NGO and also employed local workers. The water spring revived the oasis, in addition to creating job opportunities for the local community. Again, it was very helpful for returning displaced population.
Sorry, I'm unmuted. Thank you, Lena, for that. Anybody else want to add anything? No, okay. Stephen, you're quite right, Stephen. I didn't recognize you, my apologies. But makes the very good point of the knowledge of producing Damsk silk brocade must be saved urgently, because there are only probably 2 workshops who still practice that activity by hand. And there's a project that I'm sure could attract international funding. So we'll try and pick that one up. A suggestion that Syrian embassies around the world should organise cultural events in the different countries where they are. And Anna Lauter comments that following Isba and my comments about Lebanon and Biladi, that other projects for refugee children from Syria were also conducted in Jordan and Turkey and Germany. And perhaps all of that should be put together and implemented them to be used in courses in Syria as well. So that's a good idea. Again, Alia Fares talks about a project in Lebanon which targeted neglected sites. The Heritage Education Programme, which is, there's a link in the chat, in Lebanon, has also done heritage awareness in villages that no one cares about, with precious cultural heritage, which is completely neglected by the public authorities. The communities in those villages are often helpless, and giving them the tools to understand and profit both economically and culturally has proved very useful, especially for children. So that's where there are sites at risk, but that nobody is actually managing to get that going. And that reminds me, if you allow me, a very brief anecdote of when I was working in Africa 20 or more years ago. The National Monuments and Museums of Zimbabwe was having a problem with one site where the local population were removing stones from the site to build new houses. And so the National Museums and Monuments put a big fence around the site, which was, of course, stolen. And eventually, the way that the NMMZ got the population to stop stealing the stones was by giving the responsibility of protecting the site to the local primary school. And the kids educated their parents that it was not the right thing to take the stones from the archaeological site. And that's something that I've seen work in numerous countries around the world. Okay, I think that at the moment is the last question. Does anybody else want to ask anything else or say anything more from the speakers? I don't see any hands raised at the moment. We've had, I think, an extremely good conversation. We will endeavour probably next week to, for anybody who hasn't managed to stay for all of this, to have it available to those who were present today, so that people can pick up the answers to some of those questions if they had to leave. I think the only thing that is left now for me to do is to say thank you very much to all of the speakers again, for those of you who have been with us just today, for those of you who were with us in December and today, thank you very much. This wouldn't have been successful without you. It wouldn't have been successful without Isba, who has made lots of the connections and I think probably knows most of the population of Syria, as far as I can see, because whenever we ask him something, he says, oh yes, I know somebody who does that, or I know somebody who knows him or her or whatever. So thank you to Isba, but also thank you to a critical person who is sitting behind the scenes, which is my colleague Emma Cunliffe. Without her technical adeptness, none of this would have happened. And even though there have been a few more snags today than there were in December, I think we all owe Emma a great debt of thanking her for putting this together and making it possible to have a conversation between colleagues in Syria who are living through this, who have lived through this appalling situation for now many years, but there is light on the horizon, but also for those of us who are trying from the outside to help as well. So I give anybody one last chance to comment or say anything. Going once, going twice. Thank you very much indeed. And yeah, there are a couple of other comments of thanks to everybody in the chat. We'll, as I say, hopefully make this available. And with that, I will bid you farewell, but we will be, I hope, as I say, in Syria and soon, and we will try and do our best to facilitate either particular projects or work with others to develop projects. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.